Hello and welcome to Hexed Countered. My name is Joe. Today, in honor of it being March Madness, with the NCAA tournament going on, I figured I would do a video on a game that I've had for a very long time, over 30 years, and I actually have not played this in a really long time. But the game, as you can see, is March Madness from Avalon Hill. This is the 1990 edition of it. So there you go. I've had it approximately 33 years. It comes with the 1989 tournament matchups, and there's actually two games in this. One is kind of a quick playing game where you can do any tournament. So we could even set up today's 2023 tournament if we wish to, using the rankings on the board here. Let me move the box out of the way. You can see here on the board you have regions, Midwest, East. Down on the bottom, we have the Southeast and the West. Obviously, these may not match up with what we have, now, but the brackets work out the same. You have 1 versus 16, and then they'll play the 8 versus the 9. And you have the deadly 5-12 matchup that, most years actually ends up with a 12 beating a 5. That did not happen in 2023, though. Then we have 4-13, 2-15, 7-10, 6-11, 3-14. These numbers here, the +8, that's the scoring bonus that the higher seed will get. So basically, you have event chits that I have in a cup here. And what you do is you're going to roll, and you do a roll. You roll 6 dice, you add them up. Then you would add the seeding bonus, which would be this number if you're the higher seed. And then these are event chits that can be played, and you can play up to 3.5. Each player will have 5. This is a multiplayer game. You can play 1, 2-player, 4-player, etc., and you can build out the whole field and do it that way if you wish. But in general, you would just play. You would roll your 6 dice, add it up, add this if applicable. Then add any of values from event chits that are played, and that gives you your score for the half. Then you repeat it in the second half, and so there's a little bit of strategy with the events as far as what you play. Some of them add points, some of them are negative events, so there's a little bit of a strategy, I guess you would say, in that. And so this is all for the base game, which is just the tournament game. Now, after the game, you would get the opportunity, depending on what happened, to draw more events so that you move on to the next game. And the way this is structured was, if you had, say, 4 players, each one of those players would get 16 teams to fill out the 64 team brackets here, and then you would manage your teams through the tournament. And there are rules that, if you end up with one of your teams facing another one of your teams, you kind of switch. You basically hand one of those teams off, and somebody else runs them from then on, etc., etc. You get a certain amount of points for your teams winning, and then ultimately one of the 4 players would be the winner. There's also a way to play it with 2 players. There's also a way to play it solitaire, which really only involves kind of how you play the events. So that's the basic game, the base game. The advanced game actually they give you a bunch of cards here. I believe there are 60 of them. And again, this is from 1990, so they only go up to 1989. So here we have the 89 Michigan Wolverines with Loy Vaught, Terry Mills, Glenn Rice, Ramil Robinson, and Sean Higgins. This was actually a pretty good team. As you might remember, if you're old enough to remember that team, you have it's the Final 4 teams, and there's a whole bunch of them. Going all the way back to the 50s. So we have like the 1956 San Francisco team that had Bill Russell. Wilt Chamberlain's Kansas team is in here somewhere. There's Seattle with Elgin Baylor. There's Kansas with Wilt Chamberlain. And you can see these values here, these letter grades. The higher the letter grade, the better the scorer the player was. So obviously Wilt Chamberlain being Wilt Chamberlain, he's got the highest possible rating of AA, and it goes down to F. And F are guys that typically don't play much. You also have a letter grade for your bench. So basically in the advanced game, you'll have your 5 starters essentially, and then you'll have a bench, a defense grade, which will affect the scoring for the opponent. Then your coach, there are strategy cards that you can play, and the coach will determine how many strategy cards you can play in half. And then a team rating so that you can actually seed these teams. Because if we go back and we look at, say, Florida State 1972 here, their rating is an 82. But if we were to go to, here's 69, Purdue actually has the same rating. 65, UCLA is an 88. There are some hundreds in here, as you saw a moment ago. So there's a 78. Kentucky from 66 is a 90 with Pat Riley and Louis Dampier. Texas Western, 92. 82. So you can see 67, North Carolina has an 84. And some of the coaches, Adolph Rupp, you get a 4. Some of the Mike Krzyzewski ones get a 4. Some of them, Dave Gavitt here only gets a 2. Gene Bartow a 3, etc. It's kind of based on how good the coach was, I guess. All of this stuff is really rated on the team itself, and it actually tells you in the back of the instruction book, and these are the old school Avalon Hill style instructions. The text is dense. There's only 7 pages, but here you have your rating your own teams, and you can do your position rating with the scoring. Points per game, if it's 27 or more, you get a AA. If it's less than 6.4, you get an F, and then it ranges out in between. It explains about power ratings, using like the Sagarin ratings or something along those lines, or Saragan ratings, I'm sorry, to help determine, lower level D1 schools versus, the Blue Bloods, etc. Coaching rating, how the coaches are rated. It says it's most subjective, but the team's hard, ability to win in tournaments, and cohesion, and so on and so forth. So in this one, you kind of get a little leeway in rating the coaches. Obviously, the really, the top-notch coaches, everybody kind of knows who those guys are. They would get a higher number. So that game, you actually don't really use the board. We have these strategy displays here, right? So if we were to play a game here, let's just say we're going to take 75 UCLA. You could put the team card there, and they're the underdog. You use the ratings for whether it's an underdog or not. And then let's go with the 76 Indiana Hoosiers that are 100. This was the team that went undefeated. So you have Kent Benson, Tom Abernathy, Scott May, Bobby Wilkerson, and Quinn Buckner. And then the defensive grade, theirs is an A. You can see UCLA's is a B. This was, I think, one of the last teams for John Wooden before he retired. So this was after, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, or Lou Alcindor, as he was known in college. After Bill Walton, this was towards the end of their run. So it's one of the quote-unquote weaker teams, and 86 is still a really good team. So you would lay that out, and then basically these spots are for your positions and your bench, and down here you have your coaching moves. So a coach like Bob Knight has a 4, he would get 4. Wooden also has a 4, so he would get 4. And then you would basically track their moves. And you can use, whatever you want. If you have, a meeple or, an extra counter or something to mark that with. Timeouts, each team gets 1 per half. And what that lets you do is do a re-roll. Because what's going to happen is you're going to start at the 20 and work your way around. And then you'll activate different positions based on your die rolls. And what that does is allows you to score points, obviously, but both. So if we rolled something and the position is determined by the die roll. So here, let me show you. So if this was the first roll of the game, let me just put my dice tower on here for a moment. You get 6 dice. Mine are kind of a mixture because I only had 3 dice left when I opened the box. And they're all different colors. So this guy's representing blue because they correspond to the positions, right? So we have a red die. We have a gold die that I pulled from Soccer Blast. Actually, the green die was one of the dice I still had. The white die was also one of the dice I still had. That goes there. And then the black die was another one that I still had from the game. So you would roll all of them together, and then you add it up. So we have 7, 10, 13, 15, 19, which is less than 20. So when that happens, you can play a strategy card. Like here's a strategy card. Good ball handling. So you can play it to void someone out the other team's card. So it voids forcing turnovers at any positions, and half court trap, full court press cards except for defensive fouls, and it gets voided by key steal on the right guard, which is the white. So you would play this. You play the card, and that gives you an action for this round, essentially. And you only have 5 of them, or 7. You start with 7, I think. Sorry. Like I said, it's been a really long time since I played. So basically, you go through the whole half. So up here, so let's just let me pull all these out. So up here, you see that we're on 20 because that's where you start, right? 20 minutes and a half. You roll 5 dice, but you'd roll all 6 because you're rolling 1 for the position. So we're going to roll 5 here, and the colors really don't matter so much. So, okay, this is actually a good roll because we got 10, 17, 19. Let's just say that this is a 6-2 or something. So it becomes a 21. Now we're above that. You have to be above it. You can't, if you're equal or less, you don't get a scoring round. So we roll this and we got a 1. Now 1 is the center. Okay, so now we're looking at Kent Benson for Indiana and Richard Washington for UCLA. 1 is a B, 1 is a C. So now you would roll again, and you use your scoring chart here. So you look at the opposing defense. So Indiana, their opposing defense, the defensive grade for UCLA is a B. So they would be rolling on this chart. So you'd roll, and Benson's a B. So you roll a die, and we got a 1. So that's a bad roll. So you look, opposing defense B, his position rating's a B. We rolled a 1, we get 4 points, right? Now, if you had a strategy card that maybe did something to improve that number, then that would work. So he would be marked as done, and then you would roll on UCLA for Washington, and they would use chart A because Indiana's defense is an A. So let's roll again. They get a 3. So you go to the C column because he's a C. C 3 against the A is 5 points. So you would mark 5 points for UCLA. And then these guys would both be marked as having been activated. So they're done for the half. So you're getting 4 points from Benson for the half and 5 from Washington. Now, again, that can be modified with some of these event cards. Like, let me find one here. Like this guy, okay? 3-pointer upgrades you by 1 letter grade. And if the opponent has a strategy card out for zone defense, it upgrades 2 letter grades. So if you had played this on your center, and you can ignore what it says. These are like flavor text, basically. I know it says 3-pointer. Didn't have 3-pointers back then. Doesn't matter. It upgrades 1 letter grade. So Benson would have gone from a B to an A. And then if we look over here with his 1 and an A, he would have scored 6 points. So that's where the strategy cards come in. So once these guys are done, then you would mark them, again, using, some kind of token or something. Just mark the guys that are active. So there is some strategy involved too. Like if you were playing Kansas with Wilt Chamberlain, you would maybe want to try to see if you could get something that would play against the opposing center to maybe knock him down in order to, keep him from killing you, because he's a double A. And if you had, say, a C defense and he rolls like a 6, that's 24 points in a half. And that's a killer roll. So, there is some strategy involved in how that works. So that's pretty much how this game works. And depending on what you guys think of this, I may play a game. just to kind of show it, because we are in the middle of the tournament as I'm doing this. It's the day after we finished up the round of 32, so the Sweet 16 will start in a few days from now. So by the time I post this, we'll probably be a couple days out from the start of the Sweet 16. But if you guys watch this and want me to do a playthrough video of this game, I will absolutely do one. I might even rate some teams from a more recent vintage, maybe rate a team from after 1989 and play that against one of these old classic teams. I mean, we have the Larry Bird, Indiana State. We have the Magic Johnson, Michigan State. We have the Jordan, Carolina team. Pretty much anybody you remember from prior to 1989 that was in a Final Four is probably in here, going back into the 50s. So that's going to do it for now. I just wanted to kind of give you an overview of what this game looks like. Kind of a first look on a really old game. And I do have probably 8 to 10 games from the 80s that I still have in my collection that I don't play all that often anymore, but I still have them. So I may break those out occasionally, and a good chunk of them, probably more than half, are actually sports games. So you may get to see some old sports games in addition to some of the newer stuff. I did mention that I stole this die here from Soccer Blast from Play Games. I have not done a video on that game. Perhaps I will. I get in a role with the war game stuff, and honestly, because most of the sports games I play are computer games, I haven't done a lot of videos on sport games, but I'm going to try to mix it up a little bit more, because I know some of you guys have subscribed to the channel in the hopes of seeing more sports content. So, as I mentioned, that's going to do it for now. Feel free to post a comment if you would like me to do a game playthrough of this game, because I'd be more than happy to do so. It's been a while since I've played it, and this is the right time of year. So please post up a comment if you think I should do that. Or if you think I shouldn't, you can post that too, I guess. It's up to you. Either way, thank you for watching. As always, please consider liking, sharing, and or subscribing to help support my channel. I would greatly appreciate that if you are a subscriber. Thank you very much. Here's a thumbs up for you. I definitely appreciate the support. So until next time, my name's Joe. This has been Hexed Countered, and happy gaming.